I'm smirking because I've just recorded this whole video and forgot to turn the microphone on. And at the point I pressed stop, I thought, oh no! I've got to say it all again, otherwise you'd sort of have a Charlie Chaplin version of a video. You wouldn't know what I was saying. But to some people that might be an improvement on my usual annoying voice. What I did say previously was that Fenerbahce have made a cheeky bid for Manuel Lanzini. We'll be covering that today. Kalvin Phillips possibly taking Declan Rice's England place. Declan Rice to Chelsea again, albeit with a twist. And Celtic possibly beating West Ham in a long, protracted, drawn-out tug of war, if you want, for Shane Duffy. That looks to be coming to a conclusion. But those four stories, all I'm going to talk about today, they all feature on the OneFootball app. Which, bearing in mind, they're sponsoring this video, I thought we'd look at that today. The OneFootball app is downloadable in the link below. Click on the link, download it to your device. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it, but you can also tailor it to your own specifications. So I'm dealing with the West Ham section, and these are just 4 of the articles from the past 24 hours. Let's deal with a Fenerbahce and Lanzini one to begin with. Because I say cheeky, it's cheeky because it's a loan deal. And realistically, there's been interest from Turkey and Lanzini for quite a little while. In fact, they were in for him when we signed him from Al Jazeera. There was a couple of Turkish clubs in for him then. So the fact that they would try and get him now and on the cheap is not a particular surprise at all. Lanzini has let it be known that he doesn't want to go to Turkey. Well, there's two things you can read into that. Number one is, well, he's let it be known he doesn't want to go to Turkey. The second one, where's that information come from? Who's leaked that information? And if you think a little bit too deeply about things like I do, then you start thinking, well, hold on, if you're saying he doesn't want to go to Turkey, does that mean he wants to go to somewhere else? If that means he wants to go to somewhere else, is there anybody else about to come in for him? But maybe I think a little bit too much about such things. From Lanzini's point of view, the outlook has changed around him, both from his perspective towards his endeavour, his commitment and his training application, and also from the outlook of the coaching staff towards him, who have been quite impressed with what they feel is a reinvigorated and motivated Lanzini in pre-season training. I thought he played well, very well, in the game against Wickham, less so in the game against Brentford. That being said, I don't think anybody, with the exception of maybe Mikel Antonio, played particularly well against Brentford. What I do like, particularly in what I saw though, and what does maybe give an indication that he is potentially in the short and medium term plans at West Ham, is the fact he was very much deployed as a number 10. I also thought it was very good to see Paulo Fornals played as a number 10 rather than on the left wing. So when Moyes made the wholesale changes at half time, it was very much I'll swap a square peg with another square peg and so on and so forth. So if that's how we're going to start the season, with Fornals and Lanzini, one starting, one substitute, but vying for that number 10 position, that attacking midfielder position, I'll be quite happy with that. I also do feel that if Lanzini starts the season relatively well, which is going to be difficult given our fixture schedule, if he gets some assists, if he gets some goals, and he shows that his knee is up to standard, he rides a few let's say robust challenges, then I think quite possibly you may well find that some teams come in and are interested in purchasing him. Perhaps not at the elevated valuation that he once maybe had, where we thought we had a sort of 30, 40 million pound player on our hands, but possibly something that West Ham may find tempting as an offer to sell him. Interesting. Watch this space, because I do think the window, as well as there's not long to run, I do think an awful lot can and will happen in this particular transfer window. I will deal with the Declan Rice stuff in a minute, because the two of the articles really quite tie into each other quite well. The Celtic to get Duffy, I don't care if Celtic get Duffy. What I do if it's David Moyes' first choice signing, because what has become increasingly evident, it's been evident for a while, but it just gets increasingly evident, is that we're not very good at defending. I know this is no news to anybody here, and when I say I don't care if we miss out on Duffy, we definitely need a defender. I think there was a time when I thought actually just two fullbacks would do, and so on and so forth. No, I think we need an additional central defender, somebody who's reliable, somebody who's robust, somebody, I think probably somebody that that's ready to go, to hit the ground running, not a potential, if you know what I mean. with that in mind, it's not that I'm saying that I want Diop to go or anything like that, but I think we need somebody that can immediately step in, that's trustworthy when one of the centre-backs has a bad game. I say centre-backs, I mean Diop really, because it doesn't seem like Ogbonna has too many bad games this sort of day and age. The defence is important, and if Moyes has considered and very much suggested to the owner that he wants a new centre-half, then really we should give him one, because I do get the impression we can score goals at any point. I think the addition of Bowen and Soucek, as I've said on many occasions, has given us a real threat. I mentioned in the review yesterday that don't rule out Thomas Soucek getting double figures from midfield, and that's something very, very special. Aren't too many midfielders anywhere that are able to do that, and that's why we may well find that he's a bargain. And they're a good commodity, those players, of course. But I even think in tight games, when we're trying to keep it tight at the back from a set piece or a counter-attack, we can still score, which is going to be really important, particularly at the start of the season, when I do expect us to do more defending than attacking. That being said, it's very important if you do that to then keep it tight at the back. So actually our acquisition there is going to be important. So look, Celtic beat us to Duffy. Okay, fair enough. If he's not our first choice, if he is, then really we should be trying to get him. And they may well find at 5 million, you know, they should really go and do it. And maybe if a fullback costs 10 million, I know it's easy for me to say, you know, with 20 quid in my wallet, to say to go and chuck 20 million around here and there. But they may well find that it's actually quite cheap to do so, because if we don't, they will find it's a lot more expensive if they don't spend any money now and then get relegated further down the line. Because I don't think we're far off a good team. We just need to shore that back line up. Defence-ish, on the subject of Declan Rice. The Kalvin Phillips one is really interesting, because the article itself is from Wayne Rooney, who clearly would have seen Kalvin Phillips at close quarters at Derby. Because obviously Wayne Rooney was in the same division, Derby were in the same division as Leeds. And if you haven't seen Kalvin Phillips, he's been called up to the England squad. He's a fantastic player. He's a brilliant player. If we'd have sold Declan Rice last season, Kalvin Phillips is exactly the person we should have gone and got to replace him. And the article is suggesting that Kalvin Phillips has the ability to take Declan Rice's place in the England team. Now, I'm not sure it's Declan Rice's place to lose, by the way, because I don't think he's nailed on. He's not Raheem Sterling. He's not nailed on for that. I think he's shown an ability and a willingness, Gareth Southgate, to play Harry Winks there. I don't think he's given up on playing Jordan Henderson in that position. And even Eric Dyer, who he shouldn't really be in contention, because quite frankly, I don't think he's good enough. I do think he's still considered to be a viable option by Gareth Southgate. So I don't think it's Declan Rice's position to lose. That being said, he does seem to be the best player to play in there at the moment. And Kalvin Phillips not played a Premier League game yet. But he will. And he is a fantastic player. So I do think this is really, really interesting. And what makes this interesting is Declan Rice went to an awful lot of fuss and trouble and turmoil, both within his family and his personal life, and in terms of the media and everything else, when he switched from Ireland to England. It wasn't an easy thing to do, but it's something he desperately wanted to do, and he showed a ruthless streak in him doing it. And what he also showed was international football was important to him. Now, he may well feel, because I do feel that Leeds will be quite decent next season. They're already spending a bit of money. The owner didn't want to spend much money when he was down in the lower divisions. Now he's up. I think they bought a player yesterday and the day before yesterday. And if Leeds start well, Declan Rice may well feel that Kalvin Phillips is a threat to his England team. It's all very well Wayne Rooney feeling he's a threat to his England team, but if Declan Rice feels Kalvin Phillips is a threat to his England place, then he may well feel that a move to Chelsea will stand him in better stead. Because let's face it, the central midfielder at Chelsea has more chance of getting into the England starting lineup than the midfielder at Leeds United, unless Bielsa's going to coach that team up into the top four, which I think Leeds will have a good season, by the way, but I'm not sure he'll quite do that. Which brings us on to the other article, which was in the One Football app, which you can see there, which is that I don't think they've given up. I think they're still on the spend. Chelsea seem to think that they can get Declan Rice for a similar amount they got Ben Chilwell for, which was 50 odd million. We're holding out to 80. They think they can get him for 50. Oh, I hope not. I hope not. Now, maybe this is the start of a bit of haggling. But if it is, that's never a good sign anyway. Because the moment you start to haggle, you're really demonstrating that you're willing to sell. All that has to be decided is the price. And if what they're saying is 50 million and we're saying 80 million, well, you know what's happening, don't you? You know that 65 million on the table and then some additional payments. And I think for the first time, I'm actually a little bit worried about this. And I'm worried about how I look at Chelsea. I don't know if you saw them in the friendly against Brighton at all. They looked really good. Timo Werner was there. They had the new winger there. Callum Hudson-Odoi was. Do you know what? Funny enough, I don't want to make comparisons to Chelsea and West Ham, but from an attacking point of view, they looked pretty good. But Brighton were getting at them. I mean, Brighton had a couple of penalties. There was lots of attacks, lots of crosses, and all the rest of it. I just wonder if Frank Lampard and maybe Abramovich look at the team and think, well, actually, it's the defence that needs sorting out. And bearing in mind, they've already brought in Thiago Silva. Maybe they look at defensive midfield and think, this is what we need to sort out. Let's spend a little bit more money on that. Frank Lampard, as much as he's loved by Chelsea, as much as many people, including myself, thought he did a fair job last season, and a fair job at Derby. Neither outstanding, by the way, but I thought given his situation at the start of the season, when he had a transfer embargo, they couldn't buy any big players. He did get given Christian Pulisic, had already signed, by the way. So it was like a new player. And I think they made Kovacic was a new player, although he'd already been on loan. So it's not like they had no players, and these are good players who've benefited them. But I do think the way he brought the youngsters into Chelsea, he did it really, really well. But he's going to be under no illusions, Lampard, that he's working for a ruthless man. And Abramovich will get rid of Frank without a moment's hesitation. So I think Lampard has got one season, and it's this season, to impress. And I think Lampard knows that. And if Lampard knows that he only has one season to impress, then he's going to throw everything at it. And if he can get the money out of Abramovich for Kai Havertz and, more importantly and more pertinently to West Ham, Declan Rice, he's going to do so. I don't think he's going to be looking at it and waiting around and think, oh, we'll get him in next season. There may be no next season for Frank Lampard. We know what Abramovich is like. Abramovich is going to want very close to league title, very close to Champions League finals, something like that. He's going to want a trophy. Don't forget, obviously, Chelsea missed out, didn't they, in a cup as well at the last hurdle. So I think there was a little bit of forgiveness in Abramovich's mind, bearing in mind the financial constraints Lampard is working under. But now he said, here you go. One of the best strikers in Europe. There he is. There you go. One of the best wingers in Europe. If he gets Havertz, one of the best attacking midfielders in Europe. I think if he does all that, the Brazilian international centre-half and so on and so forth, if Abramovich, as he will see it, gives Frank Lampard all the best tools in the world to the job and Lampard fails, Lampard's going to be out. So will Lampard push the deal for Declan Rice? I think he would. So with that in mind, because I also think that Chelsea and Abramovich will give him the money if he really wants it and he really wants to push for it. With that in mind, the only question is, does Frank Lampard see Declan Rice as the answer to his defensive midfield solutions? Maybe he'll try and go and buy Kalvin Phillips.